AITA for leaving my wedding with my wife. Title is confusing, so I will try to explain it as better as I can. Also, English isn't my first language, so sorry if this is hard to understand. I am 29, have been with my GF, F29, for about 6 years. We love each other very much and have a fulfilling relationship. We are, however, a very introverted couple, so when we discussed marriage, we were both on the idea that we didn't want a traditional wedding or wedding at all. We wanted to go to a courthouse by ourselves, no friends or family, sing the paper and then go to our honeymoon. In our country this is very weird since weddings are expected to be massive, over the top, and every member of the family must be invited disregarding your level of closeness with them. We got engaged in relative secret since we were already living together and shared the information with our closest family. When they asked for our plans and we told them, they didn't take it very well and a lot of fight began with both families, but especially with my mother and mother-in-law, who would not tolerate a marriage that didn't involve the Catholic Church. After a few months of fighting, and since there's a pandemic going on, we went ahead with our plans and got married by ourselves and went to a month-long stay in a secluded cabin. When we returned, suddenly all bad blood with our parents and extended family was magically gone, and both my mother and mother-in-law were again very friendly as if nothing ever happened. After about 3 days since we came back, my mother-in-law invited us to the wedding of one of her friends as proof that all was forgotten. She said she would pick us up so that we wouldn't get lost, which was weird. But we didn't suspect anything. The day of the wedding we arrived at the location and say that everything is still being putting up, so we figured we were a bit early and should help, but then I saw my family and some of my in-laws. Turns out it was our wedding and they had planned it to be a surprise. They already had a dress, church, food, DJ, everything. Of course, we were shocked as we were very vocal that this is not something we wanted. Then they told us that since we were driven there, we wouldn't be able to leave and should just be grateful. Here the story becomes too long to fit the 3,000 limit, so to summarize, we called a friend to pick us up and we left. Of course, both families are super angry at us and constantly call us to tell us how ungrateful and disrespectful we are. At first, I thought we were right to leave as we made our reasons for not wanting a wedding and especially a religious ceremony, but we've been told they invited over 200 people and felt very humiliated when everyone arrived and we weren't there, so now we are doubting, and there's nothing like asking strangers for judgment. So Reddit, am I, we, the assholes? I always warn people, I will gladly sink the ship we are both on just to spite you if you try and manipulate me. My wife has seen it in action and will back me up. Lol. My best friend tanked, sold his business in the middle of a divorce to prevent his ex-wife from profiting off of it after he had very strong suspicions of her cheating, but no hard evidence he could use in court. It was a glorious thing to watch. And 2 years later his new company is thriving. She also paid her lawyer on a CC which she had to max out, so she ended up breaking about even after the proceeds from their house. It still makes me chuckle. She was awful to the dude, and he's a stand-up dude. Tried to get him stuck with child support for someone else's kid who she already received child support from. Yup, the best way to get compliance is if the unknowing audience will think you are the bad guy if you don't do what your mom and Mill just announced, what you had asked them to plan for you, and say how they went all out to get a lovely venue for a special occasion. The mistake the mothers made was not to have everyone seated and then have the bride enter first to "Here comes the bride," so that way the husband and wife couldn't communicate what to do. That big of a curveball might have got them to go a bit further with the ceremony. TBH, I probably would have gone along with it but then just ghosted them. But maintained ties with family I liked but didn't think they knew it was an ambush wedding. Yeah, totally sounds realistic. My mother tried to do the same thing when I was younger, and then I started driving myself. Then if I arrived on time, She would strategically have someone else block in my car or go out and move hers to block my car so I couldn't leave. I had to start showing up 20 minutes late and parking down the street in a random direction or in a place where I couldn't be blocked in without using 3-4 cars. Eventually I bought a Jeep. So now I just park in a place where no one can get to me and I can off-road it out if I have to. People are crazy and Ops family can get bent. Even if that's a tradition, they can be upset about it, but they're still being assholes for how they reacted to that upset by kidnapping Op and his wife. Well, to be fair, I got the off-road vehicle for going off-road and it looks cool and is a convertible, etc. The escaping attempts at blocking in were really just the cherry on top. And this was a long time ago. We didn't have much of a relationship until she figured out that I wasn't going to be guilted/bullied/literally held hostage for the relationship she wanted. So she eventually came around and has been mostly just mildly annoying for the last 10-15 years. Nothing worthy of ending a relationship. But she's annoying every year during the holidays or about my kids. Exactly. I showed up with my Jeep Wrangler Rubicon at some event she made us all come to that was in a state park. The small lot was easily blockable, so I parked on the side of the road up on a knoll so she'd need 10 cars to block me in. The look on her face when she came in from trying to park in a way to block me in was pretty funny. And she couldn't even say anything about it without drawing attention to her trying to block me in. Sounds realistic to me too. I mean, my husband and I had a small wedding and wedding reception with around 30 people. It was perfect for us. My mill invited us up to her house after the wedding a few weeks afterward for a small barbecue with the neighbors. That was a surprise do-over wedding reception with her preferred guest list. People get crazy about weddings. My Phil would pull this sort of thing, on a much smaller scale, put people on the spot in public to get the answer he wanted. He learned pretty quickly about my reflexive no. I start with no, and can adjust later, after I've had time to think, alone. My husband dealt with his father doing this by going silent and changing the subject, which also worked pretty well. I was just more willing to look like the bad guy, with husband's approval BTW. My mill last trick was so mind-blowing. We were going to another country for some work stuff and the night before our trip she casually tells us that I told all the relatives you are going to completely another country with daughter-in-law's family as a vacation. So don't post pictures on social media. I was absolutely stunned. Why are you lying? ? Why should everyone in the family know? If you are going to tell everyone, why lie? I posted after a couple of weeks and she was mad. The flag of where we are was in the picture. Oops. Edit. Thanks for the award. Yeah, a lot of my family members try this move on people. It works a lot of the time. They are a bit out of touch though. They tried it on me to fix the relationship with my junkie Bill and went, well, you're here now, and I'm not taking you back until you deal with it. I just called Uber and have not seen any of my family since. Decided it wasn't worth being potentially ambushed again, especially since generally I was supplying most of the supplies, food for whatever meal we were having because none of them work. Lol. Sorry for the rant. Your mill is my entire in-laws. I set boundaries quite early on and will happily say no, I don't want to go. My husband, who was quite conditioned by his mother, is so much happier now he's learned to say number. Doesn't stop them trying to trap us though. His youngest brother is actually the worst for this now. He's become a mini-me of his mother. My favorite has to be when we walked out of a family meal, extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. The day after Bill's wedding, they dropped this plan on us around 11 p.m. the day before the wedding. We said we couldn't stay past 3 p.m. It gets to 3 p.m. and we still haven't had any food. So we get up and say we're off, and we go, ignoring the protests of Mill and Bill. Participant 1. I'm Indian, it's real. Edit. My best friend and I had a pact once my mom started making veiled threats of arranged marriage that if my parents ever tried to force me, he would marry me, and we knew they wouldn't kick too much of a fuss because he's part of the religion, even if they don't like him very much. I am lucky I had someone willing to help if they tried to take me out of the country and marry me off. I was threatened with this quite a bit. Lots of young people don't have that support. Now, I'm just 27 and a disappointment, so no decent family will want me as a daughter-in-law. Thank God. Participant 1. Nah, the Catholic Church makes me think otherwise. Obviously there's Catholics in India, but all of the parts of the wedding he mentions don't sound Indian, and he said dress rather than sari. Also, if it were an Indian wedding, whether Hindu, Sikh or Muslim, I really don't think the reception with the DJ is one of the parts they'd prioritize if they're trying to get a few days of ceremonies into one surprise session, at least not in my experience of Indian weddings. Sorry guys. I went to sleep and wasn't expecting this many replies, and I'm relatively new to Reddit, so I don't know how to update, so I'm just going to give more information on this reply. I'm from a Latin American country, and the place where all this happened is a bit in the rural side, so while it's true that you can't just have a Catholic wedding without the seminar of sorts, the Catholic Church is a bit flexible with its rules here. For example, underage marriage is permitted, and you can get away with a coerced marriage so long as you have been baptized, had a communion, and I don't know the English word for it, but it's called confirmation in Spanish. It's real. My ex-fiancé's mom and sister did this with us for our engagement party. They organized the whole thing without telling us. They told us and we informed them that we didn't want a party and we wouldn't be able to make it anyway. They said they could hold it regardless even if we weren't there. We expressly told them to cancel, and they called everyone and cancelled and blamed me. It happens. An engagement party is different to an actual wedding though. With a Catholic wedding, don't you have to meet with the priest and provide documentation such as baptismal certs, etc.? Can a surprise Catholic wedding be arranged without the bride and groom's consent? I know in Ireland to have a church wedding the bride and groom have to do some sort of marriage counseling course. I had a Catholic wedding. We had to present baptismal certificates and confirmation certificates. Both certificates were only valid for 6 months before the wedding. My husband wasn't confirmed in the church, so he had to get confirmed first, which by itself was a pain in the ass to arrange. We had to schedule our wedding at the church office months in advance because that church was always booked. Then we had to schedule a pre-cana, sort of like a pre-marriage counseling seminar. We also had to make sure to get our marriage banns posted at our respective home parishes for 3 months before the wedding. And we had to get written permission from our home parishes to get married in a different parish. It's the same process for people who have already gotten married at the courthouse but want a Catholic ceremony as well. There are no surprise weddings in the Catholic Church. As far as I know, the couple has to show up in person for the pre-cana at least, otherwise the wedding won't proceed. The church staff also asks the couple separately if they're getting coerced into the marriage. And if the staff even suspect any shenanigans, they won't allow the wedding to happen. At least that's how it was in the parish we got married at. No, the church is weird and still require pre-counseling even if you're already married. My husband and I had my brother marry us for immigration and then planned a larger ceremony later. We talked to the Catholic Church about having a wedding and they said that we had to take the classes and pretend that we weren't married already, or living together. I argued that lying to God seemed pointless and the priest just shrugged, said that's what had to happen if I wanted to have my wedding on the church. Participant 1. My mill literally had her own second wedding reception for us because she didn't like our wedding choices. We had a daytime wedding and were upstairs in our venue when we came down and noticed everyone had left 2 hours early. We didn't cut the cake, dance, make our final speeches. We were super confused what had happened, and at first though the property manager or the buses messed up. Then the phone calls started. She tried to trick us back to her hotel where she had rented a hall and had the wedding reception she preferred. We did not go. We went to our after party. Oh, and they also threw us an engagement party against our wishes the first week, and we went down where I met them so we'd be forced to invite their friends to our yet unplanned eventual wedding. My mom is Spanish, and she's usually quite anti-tradition, but when I got engaged she was all over planning the whole thing. She was inviting people from our family who I had never even met, and deciding where, how and when it was gonna happen. All stuff I didn't want. I had to get into a massive argument with her and tell her that she either back off or she wasn't coming. She gets really weird about weddings. I wore new rock platform boots to one of my best friend's weddings. You couldn't see them, my skirt was floor length, and my mom had a fit about how I wasn't wearing strappy sandals. In November, in an area of Spain known for the cold and rainy weather. Think how huge the world is, and so if this is only something with a 1 in 7 billion chance of happening, it likely has happened, even if not too often. But I have known people that I fully believe would do this, plus have had the same thing done to me, like let's go for a drive round the block becomes I'm taking you 3 hours away to sabotage your uni exam tomorrow and work after as I think you are too sick based what I heard on the phone. The latter is obviously nowhere near extreme, but the vibe that failed that course, and if your job makes you work when you are sick you should get a different job, despite the fact I answered the phone while my lodging house perfumer was stuck on max so the sneezes were from smelling lavender all the time. I can totally see if it's a cultural tradition to have a big wedding using false pretenses to trick the bride and groom. There would be something people would do. Especially one where every family member, no matter how distant, is expected to attend, etc. It sounds very plausible. You may have heard of those companies you can pay to kidnap your child if you think they're gay, have come out and basically beat the gay out of them, and it's legal in most US states if the child is under 18. I'd say that is even more batshit than this. Asshole enthusiast. 8. Some people are so anti-public transportation they forget it exists. I had my car break down on me some years back, and I couldn't afford to replace it. I lived on a bus line in a central location, so while it was a PETA, it wasn't the end. Can't tell you how many people were like, how are you going to get to work? Take the bus, my dude. Few sputters, and some actually said that was too dangerous. Then they remembered the grocery, and I saw their brains explode when I told them I had one close by and I could just walk. The concept of just getting a couple days worth of stuff instead of one big shop for a couple weeks never crossed their mind. Lol, I have a great small, independent grocery store 3 minutes each way. I go daily and know all the staff by name. At most they are 5% more than the chains. But if I am sick or something I just call and my order, and one of the employees who drives past my home at the end of the shift will drop the stuff in and I will fix them up next time I'm in. It might sound silly, but the number of things staff do at an indie grocery store for their regulars can be amazing. But it's a two-way street. I was in there one day and a guy pulled a knife, and being in the fruit, veg section I picked up a pumpkin, stealthily figuring if the staff couldn't just give him the alcohol he was stealing and have him leave peacefully, the puny pocket knife would probably break or get stuck if I slipped the pumpkin between where he was stabbing and make him run off. The manager gave me $200 gift card because I didn't rush in like Batman, but the staff member being threatened with the knife saw me pick it up and watch, and apparently that was very reassuring to him, knowing I wasn't going to make things worse. But if the guy just got violent, he wasn't on his own.